Alright, for this sharing, we will now touch on the Keng Metal Daymaster. The Keng Metal Daymaster is the Yang metal. And so firstly, as we look into the arriving Jade Dragon, the Jia Chen, this would represent the wood. So wood would be the indirect wealth sitting on indirect resource. Now, how do we interpret this for Keng Daymasters? On the first instant, naively, indirect wealth sitting on indirect resource is generally inauspicious. Indirect wealth may represent money or wealth as it is, indirect, and indirect resource represents meta information, alternate information. And so if it is treated to be inauspicious, if it is treated to be unfavorable, this pillar may mean for the Keng Daymaster financial loss resulting from misinformation. Basically, in today's world, we have scams and frauds, and so the Keng Daymaster may fall victim to a financial scam. So therefore, a financial scam can be interpreted to be where Keng Daymaster meeting the Jia Chen. For a male Daymaster, indirect wealth represents girlfriend, and therefore meeting girlfriend may be somewhat favorable as it is. Now, more often than not, Keng Daymaster welcomes the meeting of wood because metal chops wood and wood represents the wealth element. And between the direct wealth and the indirect wealth, between the Jia wood and the Yi wood, the Keng prefers the Jia wood. And therefore, this offers great opportunities as well. Now, metal clashing with wood in this context would be clashing out. Now, clashing out would be at least better than clashing in. In the context of metal clashing with wood can also denote car accidents. And so if the Keng Daymasters have car accidents affinity for that bad luck, at least clashing out would mean you hitting somebody else rather than somebody else hitting you. Now, of course, in terms of accidents, the baseline is regardless of who hits who, it is still unfavorable. But nonetheless, at least here clashing out would be considered to be, between the two, the better one. So overall, this would denote that the year of the Wood Dragon may be the money-making year for the Keng Daymaster. Fantastic. And here we have the first Daymaster, the Keng Zi, which is your metal rat. And again, like what we have discussed in our previous sharing, we have the monkey, Shen, the rat, and the dragon. And therefore, the Shen, Jichen, represents the water combination, and water is an excellent arbiter between metal and wood. Now, I want to ask you, if you have a big axe to chop wood, would you prefer to chop dry wood or wet wood? And of course, it will be more efficient to chop when the wood is dry. But here in the Wood Dragon, we are dealing with a wet wood. We're dealing with spring wood. So therefore, metal chopping spring wood is metal chopping a live tree. And so it's painful and it's harder work. But overall, reading for this metal rat Daymaster would be harmonious because there's a metal producing water, water producing wood. And therefore, water represents the output for the Keng Daymaster. And so there is a harmonic flow, creating wealth potential for the Daymaster. So the short reading is a great year to make money. Not going to be easy. It's wet wood, metal chopping wet wood. But at least the clash will be softer, and that would be auspicious for the Daymaster. As we look on into the next, we have the tiger, the metal tiger. Keng Yin. Now there is an old saying, of course, that we have the Long Hu, which is dragon and tiger. Dragon and tiger in some of the old texts for Taoism would be water and fire, where tiger is part of the fire combination and dragon water. And therefore, this fire water yin yang energy may denote what we call outstanding people. And so, having tiger and having dragon, these two represents, in a way, you can say that both of them offers the spring direction or the eastern direction if they have the rabbit as well. And therefore, that would represent very strong wood element for the day master. The tiger, within the tiger hides the 7K and the indirect wealth. And so the arriving indirect wealth will now show the protrusion of wealth. So basically, money appears. Money appears. As money appears, as it protrudes to the stem, that may be favorable to one who seeks wealth. And furthermore, the dragon brings along the hurting officer and the direct wealth. And therefore, this represents an overwhelming amount of yang energy, overwhelming amount of extrovert energy. Now, of course, some of you will be quick to highlight to me that Kueh water and Yi would be yin, but direct hurting officer, these are extrovert energy. Hurting officer is extrovert. And so that's mean be the overflowing of the yang energy from the Jia Chen, and also, of course, the extrovert energy that comes in. So this overall brings great opportunities for the Keng Yin to outperform, or basically results in a very extroverted with the hurting officer, and also, of course, the direct wealth comes and appears for it. Now, next we have the dragon. Now, again, with the earlier sharing as well, in the first part, we see the dragon self-punishment. And this self-punishment has something to do with your indirect resource, and also has to do with hurting officer. Now, putting these two together, information-related hurting officer may be rebellious information. Rebellious information may represent some kind of scandalous or treasonous or inciting information. Yeah, I mean, nowadays, as you know, in many countries there is always clampdown for what you post on social media. Therefore, this year will be something that you need to be careful of when posting social media comments. So it will be better to avoid or to stay low in this area rather than to be too emotional and to post some comments on your social media which there's a tendency to regret, or there's a tendency to backslash in this context, yeah, as it is. Therefore, we do have the dragon and dragon punishment. Now, again, here we also see that there are 10 ferocious big day disasters. There are 10 pillars which have been highlighted under the Shensha analysis to be of the 10 ferocious big disaster days. And it so happens that Keng Chen is one of them, as well as Jia Chen. Normally, this represents in the ancient reading warfare. It normally represents warfare, because Jia Chen is a pillar for war, and Keng Chen is also a pillar for war. A clash between swords and spears, between sabers and lances. Therefore, this would be for those who read pillars on the arriving, this would be the arriving pillar for military conflicts, for basically arguments, and in such a manner, it may result in what called the big 10 disaster days. And for indirect wealth sitting on indirect resource, it may be exposed to financial losses. Again, the victims of fraud and scam. Nonetheless, Feng Chen is one of the four Fui Kong pillars. Fui Kong is a commander pillar. Feng Chens are hard to kill, they are tough, they are generals, and they tend to rise above. And usually, Fui Kongs are fearless in facing clashes. In a way, that's why they're also one of the ferocious big disaster days. Yeah. Therefore, they're tough, and Fui Kongs love a challenge. And despite what has been mentioned, the Fui Kongs are capable of overcoming all these threats of disasters and conflicts and clashes and turn out to be winners. So in that case, we may see that the reading for Keng Chen meeting the Jia Chen would be one of conflicts, one of clashes, but it may still be a favorable outcome eventually, or the net positive for the Keng Chen, because they are Fui Kongs and they are survivors and war generals. I mean, in a way, generals make their name during times of war, yeah, as it is. Now, the Keng is a horse. Now, there is a saying, and when it comes to Chinese New Year, one of the idioms or one of the saying would be the Long Ma Jing Shan, Long Ma Jing Shan, which means the dragon horse vitality. So it may be misunderstood that because it is utterances that may appear to be favorable during Chinese New Year celebrations, actually it may not be so in the reality of it. Because here we'll find that there is an understanding that every time hurting officer meets direct officer, every time hurting officer meets direct officer, calamity ensures. And we also find that we have your indirect resource meeting your direct resource, creating information confusion or misleading. Now, victims of misrepresentations, victims of misleading information may also mean that the decision that is made for the year may be guided by wrong information. And therefore here we find that the metal horse would find the worst challenges of all the 6 pillars that we have discussed thus. And the other thing also, of course, is for this horse to fight. Now, in every aspect, of course, if we are dealing with a female, if this is a female, we find that the lady sits on the husband. The lady sits on the husband. And of course, hurting the officer, indicating that there might be certain external so-called forces. And in a way, the output side may represent the child hurting the husband. Therefore, for female day master, the reading may also be extended to family-related quarrels between children and the parents. Yeah, in that particular part, one can then read it in this manner as well. All right, so this would be just looking into the Keng Wu meeting the Jia Chen. Now, next we have the Keng Shen. The Keng Shen is a metal monkey. Metal monkey, pure metal pillar, metal sitting on metal. Therefore, it's sitting on friend. Meeting the Jia Chen would be generally inauspicious. Generally inauspicious, as again, it's an indirect wealth sitting on indirect resource. And what happens here is that it may be mitigated by having that monkey dragon and red water combination. So the water represents the output energy, and energy output will be able to generate, a certain wealth that we may find. So in this context, we may also say that it might be a bit mitigated, and therefore it wouldn't be the worst element that we can also find. So overall, one can also consider that with water abound, the ability to the clash will be softened. So the clash between the metal and the wood may be mitigated by plenty of water around. So this indicates that there's a lot of output of creative energy that can then be harnessed to provide wood. So meaning to say that there is wood producing water, producing the wood, water producing the wood. And the arrival of the rat, where it's also water producing the wood. Therefore, the indirect wealth experience growth, and now the wood grows due to the ample amount of water, and therefore enables the Keng metal to make money. And therefore, this actually means that there are opportunities to make money, and of all the 6 Keng metal pillar, Keng Shen will have the hardest. It will be the hardest to make money. And the one thing that Keng Shen would definitely need as a useful element is the Ting fire. The Ting fire. Because in a way, metal needs to experience the baptism of fire. And therefore, metal needs to be forged under the flames of fire to refine, for metal to become sharp. And therefore, here, so far, right now on this chart, we do not see the presence of any Ting fire. So if there is, then it will be used. And where do we find Ting fire, or what is Ting fire to the Keng Day Master? The Ting fire is essentially the direct officer. And so for direct officer to be present, that will be used. And therefore, for a Keng Shen lady, the husband is a useful element. For husband is represented by direct officer. And for all, male and female, direct officer also represents a job, represents employment, which means that this person is best to work and to be within an organization, a large organization, to be then be able to have the structural support in order to then make the money. All right, so this represents all the various elements that we have. Now, last but not least, we now come into possibly also quite a bad one, which is your metal dog. Now, the metal dog would be what we know as a heaven and earth clash. So the earth will clash, the heaven will clash. The hurting officer will have a go at the direct officer. And of course, the rob wealth will then be able to rob the wealth into the park. And therefore here, this is where we find that this would be the Fan Yin pillar. So as you can consider, what is the Fan Yin? The Fan Yin pillar is that of all the 60 pillars, this one is toe-to-toe clash. So this is going to be a volatile clash, as you're going to find that the Day Master will be clashing out to his or her indirect wealth, and then driven by a lot of earth-to-earth conflicts. So these earth-to-earth conflicts will release, because when earth and earth clash, changing jobs, moving house, relocation, earthquake event in a person's life, it will release all the hidden elements in the tomb. It will release the elements in the tombs. Therefore, here it will release the Kuei water, hurting officer. It will release the direct officer. Therefore, there will be quite a release. And this release of water and fire also represents quite a bitter conflict between these two elements itself. And therefore, for those which are Kengshi, which is your metal dog, well, bad news for you. This year is the Fanyin pillar that you face in the works of the Judgment. Therefore, be ready for this onslaught. But nonetheless, again, the Kengshi is yet another Fui Kong pillar. Yet another Fui Kong pillar. As it is the Fui Kong pillar, it is hard to kill, it is tough, and therefore, if it is tough, we may find that again, the experience will be bitter. The experience will be conflicting, volatile, but Fui Kongs have the tendency to come out to be the winner. It may be a hard-won battle, but it's still a victory at the end. Therefore, Kengshis are not afraid. They are very much able to survive. Because why? Because here we find that number one, especially for female Kengshi has the husband here. Husband in the Day pillar represents marital bliss, the right place, albeit it into the tomb. It has indirect resource, which is intuition. It has very good gut feeling. It has rock wealth, which is very much an entrepreneur, and therefore it has very extroverted kind of an energy. Therefore, this Fui Kong is a survivor, but still, this is a Fanyin year. So changing jobs, moving house will be expected, but you're going to make it at the end of the day. All right, so this wraps up on the sharing on how the Jade Dragon will bring to the Keng Themas. All right, I'll see you for another session.